We are back for part 2 over here. We got Vish going on right here, so we're going to get back into it. So Vish, if you could be a better interviewer than me on this one, what were we talking about right before we went on break?
Right before we went on break, we were talking about how I just started getting involved with the Young Republicans, and we started talking about basically after Trump, right? Trump wins, and what's the reaction? Right? And everybody went crazy, and I was like, oh my god, people went crazy. So it was like, you got to do something.
In those exact words.
Yeah, no, I mean, like it was concerning. So the reactions, just the whole Trump derangement aspect of it, right?
Yeah, Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like one thing he did was, which is another amazing feat, is that he basically made politics the most popular television show in America, or the most popular show or movie, whatever you want to call it. And that's a big deal. At least everybody's paying attention now, right? But you get crazies that pay attention too much and they go crazy, And then in our crazy warped world today, where the crazies get the most attention, well, that's the craziest voice is the one that gets amplified the most. So I started seeing all this, and I was like, you know what, this just, if I care as much as I think I care, if I am a narcissist, right? I love myself, so I'm telling myself I care. It was like, okay, well, you care, right? So then do something. It's like you have to. You've got to get involved. You got to do more than what you're doing now. Okay. So I went and I Googled Staten Island Young Republicans and stuff. And sure, Staten Island Young Republicans came up. I was like, all right, I don't know anything about anything.
I wonder what the bias was on the search results on that. It's like, oh yeah, Young Republicans. Then the next one, Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
It's like, are you sure you want to be a young Republican?
So I went and looked website. The first one was like a fundraiser, like it was like a fundraiser for like food at Danino's. You buy something and like a portion of the profits go to like charity or something.
Good old Danino's.
Yeah, good old Danino's. I was just like, Danino's, pizza and politics. All right, let's go. Let's do it. So I went, first meeting ever, and there was like maybe like 20 people there, and the president of the club, Nick Iacono at the time, our friend.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, so he comes up to me and is like, hey man, he was welcoming.
Nick is such a good guy.
He's a really nice guy, yeah, and he was really cordial with me, very inviting. And he's like, hey man, thanks for coming. Why'd you join? And I was like, hey man, First Amendment's under attack, and I'm here to like help fight, and that was just like my smile. I'm not gonna sit there and tell him this whole spiel about.
That's what a lot of people tend to do, especially on a first introduction.
Yeah, that's like, and yeah, I'm not trying to like put everybody through that. Like over time, I'll give you my stories like now today.
Exactly.
But in that moment, I was just like, free speech is like a top issue I care about, and I feel like it's under attack, so I'm here. And he's like, all right, great, we'll get more involved, come to more meetings and stuff, and just start, getting more involved. And I did. Started just going to stuff, participating, talking to people, paying attention, paying attention to the politics, what people talk about, the disagreements within the party, right? This is where I get to see the internal politics and sort of how it's all debated, right? Well, now I get to go inside the party and see how this is all operating. And, lo and behold, it's not really rocket science. Right. That's why I think this is where the majority of Americans, especially young people who are sort of outside looking in, they sort of make this out to politics to be this mysterious thing, and like there's all this cloak and dagger stuff going on, and all these crazy backroom deals being made where you give them like 10 virgins for a piece of land and a vote on this thing, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. It's like it's actually a lot pettier. It's like it's more human than anything.
That's a very good culmination of how you just sum that up.
Yeah,
it's petty, but on like more ridiculous things.
Yeah, it's like petty, but like more. Yeah, exactly, more ridiculous things. So, but there's like good conversations and people who are concerned about the right things and have the right issues in their in their scope or in, you know, what they're concerned about. And so I started getting a feel for this. I just started volunteering for campaigns, just random campaigns. I didn't know if they were going to win or going to lose. I'm knocking on doors. I'm doing whatever I can, you know, and just get more involved in the scene. And I guess I'm a likable guy. I guess maybe, you know.
That's why there's a part 2. You're the first person to be on a part 2 on something.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's already working out for me.
Exactly.
So, you know, so I guess I'm a likable guy, and you know, I have a lot to say. Obviously, I could talk forever. And I, you know, interesting background. I'm not gonna lie, I don't look like your typical Republican or anything like that. So it makes me interesting, and you know, a lot of people sort of, you know, wanted to talk to me, get to know me, do stuff with me, invite me places, and just bringing me more into the scene, into the crowd, and start giving me, you know, more invitations to places not everybody goes to, and you know, stuff like that. Just getting allowing me to ingratiate into the scene, you know, and so. And with that, you know, I just, as I'm paying attention, making the right friends and whatnot, I sort of, now I get to see how I can put it together and how I can build my own machine, and that's what I started working on.
With that being said, I have a general question for you. Mm-hmm. So, with all the issues that whether it's the Young Republicans or the New York City Republicans talk about, mm-hmm. as far as like, you know, what needs to be in more progression, mm-hmm. what's one issue that people take too much time to invest in, and what's one issue people don't invest enough in?
Well, you know what? You see, like in New York, especially New York City, you have a bunch of people who, obviously, you're like in the center of the world in a certain sense, right? In New York City, you're, you know, business capital and whatnot. You have all these big picture issues that we can be concerned about because we're in the middle of it's a big city. We have a big scope for a lot of things, whether it's business or, you know, fashion or art and all these scenes. We have big, you know, we're at the cutting edge of this stuff, with the big ideas of this stuff. And what we tend to lose sight of is that there's actually there's people here, right here in these 5 boroughs, these conservatives here. There's a party that needs to be cultivated here and taken care of here, and we don't do that, right? It's like you're thinking of the world when you're barely taking care of, you know, your house, right? You know what I mean? So like that's the problem that I see with, you know, whether it be the Manhattan GOP or the state GOP, whatever it is. You know, you have a lot of these people that are concerned about doing a lot of big things and affecting a lot of big things and can't even affect the little things. So, like, you can't affect the little things, but you think you're going to make a big splash on the big thing? Like, it doesn't make sense. So, I'm trying to sort of take that back. You know, I noticed that, like, everybody has big ideas and, you know, a lot of... New York, it's a lot of big money, too. Right? The New York like, think about it, for conservatives or, you know, or Republicans, how many seats are there really out here to win? Not as much as, you know, maybe some other place.
Exactly.
Right? But let's just take, for example, Pennsylvania, right? Pennsylvania, it's a swing state. There's a lot more Republican win there, right? But which state party has more money? The New York party.
Yeah.
Well, what the fuck, right? Like, we have more money than a party in Pennsylvania that actually has seats that they could win, and like actual elected seats that Republicans win and have power that they can, you know, then broker off of and whatever. But you're telling me they don't have more money than the New York GOP, which we have like no seats,
right?
It doesn't make sense. Where's all the money going? Right? And so it's just, here it's like, New York is like, you know, the center of clown world politics, you know what I mean? So we have all the money, but we can't get anything done, and it's just, it doesn't make sense. And what I think is that, you know what? Republicans did such a shitty job here of building out and maintaining a party, right, that we almost have to forsake it in itself. You know, we have to say, you know what, we're going to have to forget building a party in the traditional way, right? Especially, at least in New York City, right? Instead, what we need to focus on is take advantage, and we have all these big thinking people, and a lot, and obviously New York, it brings together a lot of like the best talent from all over the country, all over the world, right? And so you have to take that into account. Maybe you are getting so many people with a lot of big ideas because you're just getting more people who think big in general, right? And that's what you get when you have super smart, super talented people all pulling up in one place. Everyone has. This guy mentions a big idea. Well, I have a bigger idea. You know what I mean? So like. That's you get that competition of ideas. Well, if that's the case, what the party needs to do out here is actually put more effort into moving the needle on culture, right? As opposed to like trying to move the needle on actual votes on the ground in Manhattan, because you're trying to win a state senate seat or a city council seat or a congressional seat even. Instead of trying to move all that. Why aren't we a hub for conservative culture in general, right? Like we should be a conservative Hollywood, right? New York has a lot of artists.
Ironically, Hollywood used to be conservative.
Ironically, right? but we can be that where we have just the population alone, right? If maybe at any given time, the metro population will be like 14 million, yeah? And
it's a lot.
Right? It's like 14 million, right, at peak time, working and everybody. If even 10% of those people are Republicans, that's like 1 million people, right? And that's more than some other whole cities.
Exactly.
Right? Of just Republicans, right? And so, like, we can, if you pool all that talent together, you can have a whole art scene that's just conservative. You can have a whole tech scene that's just conservative. They're here literally only making...
I really like how you're painting this picture.
Right? It was like you can have a tech scene where it's just conservatives making stuff for conservatives. You're pooling all the intellectual capital that's available for conservatives in this place that's already doing it for you by the nature of it being New York. Right? So you just need to harness it. And so from there, once you're able to start driving the culture, right, and driving that conversation using New York's media capital and creative capital to create cultural capital for yourself, that's when you can then, New York can be a big kingmaker in the whole political scene, even across across the states or back into the city itself, right?
Because nevertheless, people want to relate to clout.
Right, exactly. Nevertheless, people want to relate to clout, and then even if locally the people are seeing, there's these Republicans, these conservatives, they're making all this crazy content that everybody in the country is watching. Well, let me see. They're right here. They're right across the river. Let me see what they're about, right? And now you're like starting to turn the conversation, and because you have so many people, right, a million, maybe 1 million conservatives in one place. Now you actually have boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You can actually go and knock on doors and stuff, Now you've organized them under different pretenses, right? It's like, no, you're going to be, you guys are going to make software for us. You guys are going to make movies for us. You guys are going to make cartoons for us. You guys are going to do fundraising, right? New York is a huge, we're rolling in money and more or less. We should be the farm system. That's what I'm trying to do with the young Republicans, is create a farm system of operatives, right? Culture, like creatives, right? Why do politicians need creatives? Well, do you like political ads, right? Political ads can make or break
of course,
a campaign, right? So, but we should be grooming creative political operatives. Every campaign needs money. I don't care if you're a Republican in Wichita or you're a Republican on the Upper East Side. You're going to go to Wall Street in New York for donations. We should be grooming the fundraising operatives for the future, right? Everyone should come to the New York Young Republican Club and be like, hey man, I need a fundraiser, who's gonna hook me up with these people on Wall Street for my campaign. And it's like, well, this guy, has volunteered on the last 7 campaigns putting together these fundraisers and whatnot. Maybe he can, maybe you hire him and he'll do the fundraising for you all in New York. Boom, you just created a job for this guy. and he got his experience fundraising, with the club, helping other candidates or helping our own fundraising operations. But he has the donor list and all that, So grooming the whole ground game base, grooming the whole fundraising base, and grooming the whole creative base. Those are like the three pillars because that's what New York can do. A lot of people, a lot of money, and a lot of artists.
Right.
So pull them together. They should and you create a farm of operatives and even candidates from there, right? Because you get them involved long enough, and they hang out with enough of these people. Some of them get their own ideas, and they're like, "Hey, I want to run."
Now you've been getting yourself more into campaign management, right? How long have you been doing that in that time span?
1 week.
So you've never had anything prior?
Nope.
I respect it though. I respect what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so that was my whole thing. Yeah, now my whole thing is taking over the club scene in New York City, the cultural scene, right? So I did that first. I helped a buddy of mine, Ian Riley, take over the Metropolitan Republican Club, which was like a huge mainstay in the city as well. Took that over. Now it's under new youthful leadership. Now, Gavin Wax, the president of the New York Young Republicans, and me, now I'm the vice president. We went and then we took, with Peter Batista and Jacqueline Delinsky as the elected board, we all got together, took over the New York Young Republican Club. Now, we're looking at some other clubs that we might want to partner up with, or maybe, get some of our own people to take control of or take charge of, to sort of unite the scene, right? Consolidate the scene. So that's all in the all in the works. There's more clubs to come, but now we're approaching 2020, right? So 2020. I mean, give me a break. 2016, nobody thought whatever crazy outcome was going to happen, but it happened, and that crazy outcome has led to now the crazy run up to 2020 to take it back, to end the nightmare. Right? So there's
the real hero's journey.
Right, the real hero's journey. So like everybody's going to dump everything they got, right? It's not like it was before where Donald was just like, "Oh, well, it's Donald Trump, he's not going to win." It was like, "No, he's already won." Right? And so like now he's a completely viable candidate.
Yeah.
So you have to
always went through.
Right. So now you have to treat him like that, which is a big deal, right? And so you got to dump everything you've got in order to, if you're a Democrat, you're going to dump everything you got to take it back. And if you're a Republican, you're going to dump everything that you got to keep it. And it's going to be a shit show. Now, of course it is. But for me now, it's like, okay, well, I can take over the club scenes, right? And I can take over the volunteer base in the city. How much power is that?
You're repeating status quo.
Right. It's like, okay, now what? Right? I got everybody to come around, and they'll hang out at the speaker series, hang out at the socials, and it's easy to hang out. Totally easy to hang out. But now I need you to like knock on doors, for candidates and stuff, right? Okay. Well, I got to give them a candidate that they like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's got to be somebody that's in line with, obviously the ideological bent that, over the last couple of years, obviously the GOP is moving, or at least the base is moving more towards, because Trump showed that he could win, and there are winning elements of Trumpism that now we have to incorporate into the Republican Party, into the conservative, ethos, in a sense. So, well, now you need a candidate for that. Now you're in New York City. Where are you going to get a candidate like that?
Exactly.
Right? Very difficult, right? You'd have to go all the way upstate, and maybe you'd get, like, a real Trumpian who can, like, really, like, be, like that America first through and through, and, like, wouldn't have to buck on anything and still win, right? Maybe you don't really get that in New York City. But if there was a candidate like that who's, like, almost Trumpian in fashion and what in style and ethos and whatnot, these clubs and the young volunteer base will get behind them, but we got to provide them that candidate, right? So then it goes into, okay, well, let's look at the 5 boroughs, which is a seat that's big enough that a Republican win and can make a lot of noise from, right? New York 11, Staten Island, plus a little part of Southern Brooklyn. Okay, that's a congressional seat. So you need to run a guy here or a girl here from Congress and take that seat from Max Rose, who's currently the Democrat that's sitting there, right? But a Republican can still win. It's a toss-up seat. It's one of the competitive districts that everybody has their eyes on.
Sure.
Right? So that's another thing, right? You want to pick. You want to play in a race where some people have eyes on it, right? Obviously, I'm not gonna get into a manager campaign that nobody's gonna talk about, nobody's gonna care about. Well, don't be silly.
Exactly.
Right? So New York 11. Okay, who's the front runner for the Republicans now? Nicole Maliotakis.
Yeah.
She won. She ran for mayor, 2017. She lost, but in her loss, she did carry Staten Island with like 72% of the vote
Yes.
here. So her name recognition is up in the district. So that's your front runner. Okay, well, do I get behind Nicole? Well, she said she regretted voting for Trump or something like that.
Right.
I'm not really into that. So, it's like I'm one of these like no regrets. It's like you do something, you do it. Try to live with as few regrets as possible.
And embrace it if you fail.
Yeah, and if you fail, embrace it, own it, right? And I don't really see that from Ron. Just honestly, I don't see much of. I feel like she's already hit her ceiling, So I don't think I could have maybe gotten behind her, but then I sort of I heard about Joey Salads. Right? Do you know who Joey Salads is?
I know who Joey Salads is. He's been hitting up the viral like spots for the longest time now.
Yeah.
And he's never lost his peak.
Yeah, exactly. The guy's
been around for years now.
He's been around for years, and he's been around for years, and right now he's only 25.
Right.
So he's like he's young, but he's known. He's a celebrity. He's got like 10 million followers across all his platforms, 1 billion.
Do you know his
views a
friend
year.
Anthony Centennial? Or I think his little brother, I think he helps him now with doing videos.
Oh, it's actually
His
I
name's
don't know.
Steve. Steve
Steve?
Centennial.
I maybe not.
Got it.
I haven't asked about his actual like video operation or
Oh,
like,
yeah,
who's
yeah.
working on that. So I sort of like got wind that he wanted to run for Congress. I'm like, who is this guy? And I look and it's like, oh, this has got all these followers. He's all these stories, and he's 25, and I'm just like, wow, this is really interesting. And he's a Republican. He's like unapologetically,
Right.
conservative, Trumpian, and all this thing. And I'm looking, I'm like, you know what? This might be the interesting race that outside of the presidential 2020, this can be the most interesting race in the whole nation.
Because look at it
If this guy runs.
Look at it this way too. So to your exact point, the guy on the Democrat side who tried to do this, and he is somebody who I respect a lot, Paul Sperling, somebody who is around the same age, trying to get himself as the congressman, and as much as I like him, he repeated the status quo,
Right.
and I felt like that's where he fell to failure on with his campaign. So when you mentioned to me about Joey Salads, this is where he can transpire from what his past has been and how he can impact people.
Right, exactly. And I just saw, and there's a lot of things going on there. There's a lot of near term sort of implications for Joey running, and then there's also long term implications, right? Now you have a candidate whose practically their whole adult life is like behind camera. And there's a lot of, Joey's no angel. There's a lot of crazy stuff that he's done. It's all out there. It's all on video. It's all floating around somewhere in the ether, right? And he's done all that, and now, okay, let's say he's had a change of heart, and now he's a humble man, and now he wants to serve his community and run for Congress, right? And let's say, he's had a, it's for other people to judge. No, I could tell you, it's like, he's a good man, he's a changed man and all that, but that's for everybody else to decide, I could just try to convince you. But let's just say, if we're going all that, well, if he's a changed man, if he's telling you he's a changed man and he wants to do right by his community and do good for his community, do you turn around and you're like, well, what about this crazy video you did? You did this one crazy video, it was either racist or insensitive, blah, 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 whatever it was. should I vote for you? You know, do you even deserve a chance? Right? And this is where I sort of felt like, you know what, I think this guy, I'm the right person for this, for this guy to help him manage his campaign, because I'm one of those guys that felt like if I didn't get a second chance, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so, maybe I didn't have to deal with all sorts of crazy content out there about me to like fight it through to fix myself, to make good on my second chance. But I feel like Joey's somebody who's going to need help doing that. And so I decided to, with that, and just for like, Joey's a smart guy, and he's all about innovation. Definitely has strong concerns about the opioid crisis out here. He wants to address that. He wants to help small businesses, taxes. Definitely against the immigration, and definitely for immigration reform. Comprehensive immigration reform. Just knowing that young guy and all this, I was like, you know what, the wind's behind this kid's back. There's only up from here for him.
Right.
So for my mission, what I'm trying to accomplish here, which is to revitalize the conservative and Republican scene in New York City, and then a candidate like Joey, who's got like all this energy and this new face and new momentum behind him, I feel like it's a marriage made in heaven. And so I went up to him and I was like, hey man, can I be your campaign? I'll manage your campaign if you're interested. And when I messaged him about that, he didn't respond to me first, right? Then I was like, hey man, I'm from Staten Island. I'm fairly politically connected. I would love to help you out and manage your campaign. Then he got back to me. He's like, oh, thank God, because I didn't want anybody to manage my campaign who wasn't from Staten Island.
Oh, that's a great way to connect that too.
Yeah, I do not want anybody who's going to manage my thing.
Because there's that lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Like if you had someone from the city, like maybe from like a political like advisory thing, that's not going to help him.
Exactly. That's not what he wanted. He wanted somebody from Staten Island. And then, I happen to be the guy who reached out to him with that background and whatever, and that's how it began. I was like, all right, this is the team. Let's go. Let's do this thing. Joey Salad's at the front, I'm in the back, and let's get there.
I think he should, even with like his campaign going on, he should still make the same type of videos as he has been doing because he addresses so many issues.
Well, first of all, Joey has made about 1.5 years worth of videos all backed up and saved up so that he could release them while he's on the campaign, and like he can campaign uninterrupted, knocking doors, making phone calls, doing all that stuff. So there's that aspect where he's already got content that he's just got ready to go to be released while he's campaigning for like a year. I think it's mostly non-political stuff. But obviously, this is going to be a brand new, game-changing kind of campaign. We have lots of cool ideas about how we're going to actually go about getting our message and doing the outreach. And, one of those is like, well, of course we're going to use his social media prowess and his video making prowess and all that to affect the conversation, affect the narrative. And so he's going to be doing a lot of videos, politically minded videos, experiments, pranks, all this. He's going to, we have, this is going to be the most creative campaign of 2020. All right? Bar none. There's no
first.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody. He's the first YouTube celebrity to ever run for U.S. office, ever. Right.
There you go.
That's big shoes to fill. So we're gonna set the tone. And if you're a YouTube celebrity, this is how you're gonna run the campaign.
The tutorial is right upon you
exactly.
right now.
Exactly. So we're gonna make sure that he's out there. That's another reason why I wanted to work this campaign, because the creative liberty is just so great, right? Because you could do anything. Nobody expects this guy. Everyone's underestimating him. He's got no political experience, but he's got lots of viewers, and he's camera friendly and knows how to do videos and all. It's like built for the 21st century.
Right.
Okay, well, we can do a lot of new stuff. A lot of new stuff that people never seen before. It could go terribly right or terribly wrong. No, right? But we get to find out, and that's going to happen right here on Staten Island, right? We want to give people of District 11 something they could talk about and be proud about, and we want to be that. So,
because think of it this way, like in the last sense of like people running for governor and assembly seats or whatever, when I was doing research as far as how low our Staten Island turnout is in voting, it's abysmal. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely abysmal. People, like, for the most part, especially on the South Shore, people don't vote.
Yeah, that's actually, if they're on the South Shore and they don't vote, it's going to be a huge problem for us because all our votes live there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, this is not the time to be apathetic, you know, and this is sort of my critique for just New York City voters in general, whether it's Republican or Democrat. I don't care what your party is. If you're living in New York City, it's very, very likely you don't give a shit about politics, and that's a huge problem for me, right? You walk around in Manhattan today, and you see like the homeless problem, like feces on the street, and like there's like Staten Island. You got the opioid crisis, heroin crisis, needles, pollution, and you're looking around, and you're like, how come nobody cares about this stuff? Don't we have like a mayor that's like lip servicing like stuff like this every day about fixing this stuff and being good for the people, like? And this stuff is, like, happening and getting worse. What's going on?
And then blaming other people.
And it's like, and, you know, I hate to be that person. To be like, oh, you know when this place is going to vote Republican? When it gets hit by a comet. You know, or when it gets hit by an asteroid. Well, it has to be that bad, right? The city was voting blue all the way up until, like, what was the shape of the city when Giuliani won? Like, by that razor-thin margin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but, like, you have to walk out of the subway, and, like, somebody has to get their head blown off right next to you for you to be like, you know, I think it's time for a change. You know what I mean?
That was Dinkins, right?
Yeah, that was like, yeah, exactly. It's that was complete disaster.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that New York City had to be in for a Republican to win. Are you kidding? Exactly. You know, it's like, what? Do you guys not care to stop the problem before then? And it's like, no. New York is so wrapped up, you know, there's good things and bad things about being, you know, business capital, fashion capital, creative capital of the world or whatever. It's like everyone's wrapped up in their own worlds that they don't care about the whole political aspect of it. Right, and they just sort of let that all fester.
Politics and what they deal with already.
Right, exactly. Office politics. This and that. I don't need to fret about this guy, you know, De Blasio or whatever, giving $1 billion to his wife that she just like made disappear. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's no appetite for it because they're dealing with so much of their own shit. Not only that, you move to New York because you want like a fulfilling social life, so you're worried about where the next party is or where all the girls are gonna be, or you know what I mean. Like you're into your social stuff, you're into your work. If you're gonna do any activism, it's not at all active. It's probably slacktivism, like you're like tweeting stuff or like
exactly
shit posting on Facebook, whatever it is, right? Like that's as far as it goes, really. Maybe, you know, you'll eat at a Wagamama because it has a freaking, you know, they changed their logo to like the LGBT flag.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you saw that. There's like new.
Oh no, I never saw that.
I missed that one.
There was, I think maybe like last year I walked by a Wagamama and like their logo was all in like the LGBT flag signs. I'm not against gays or anything like that. You know, I love the LGBT crowd. Actually, they love me.
I mean, I'll even say this: some Republicans who I know that are gay, like I've never seen people so chastised by the left.
Oh yeah,
who are in the same line in the LGBT.
Oh,
community.
dude, that's actually a great. It's a great point you bring up. If you fill up the oppression points, but like you're a Republican, you actually get it worse.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like as a brown Republican or Indian Republican, I get it pretty bad. Right, I get it worse than like some of my white friends. Or in essence, the way they look at it is like, well, you're white, so you know I get that you're a Republican, but you brown Republican, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
You're a traitor to your people.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be like that.
You know? Oh, you're gay, and you're a Republican. what is the matter with you? Don't they know what they want to do to people like you? Right? Like, that's the way...
It's very childish when you think about it.
It's very childish. Not only that, it's like you've come full horseshoe on like the whole like the race thing, right? So it's like, you know, back in the day, it's like, oh well, you're black, you're not supposed to drink from that water fountain. Oh well, you're black, you're not supposed to vote Republican, right? So it's like you've like you know what I mean? You've come full circle on like the conversation almost, you know what I mean? But it went from something very physical, like, you know, water fountains and public spaces and all that, to, like, now a metaphysical thing, to, like, ideology and what you believe in and, you know, what values you hold you know, dear to yourself or to your conscience, you know? It's interesting, like, it went from, like, physical to metaphysical, but now you're, like, still going through all the same sort of, you know, friction points. It's like, well, you know, maybe back in the day you might have been like, I'm not dating that guy because he's fat, right? But today it's like, I'm not dating that guy because he's a libertarian, right? It's not about like his physicality, but it's more like it's what's happening up here.
Speaking
I'm
of which,
triggered. Oh.
You know?
Well, it's interesting.
I'm
to say
libertarian.
that.
I'm triggered by that. No.
There was a girl like I was dating 2 or 3 years ago. She was like lefty or whatever, and I, at the time, voted for Jill Stein because I felt like out of all the people going for it, she was the most reasonable. She was able to debate with Fox News effectively. So I felt like she was a relatively, like, rational person, at least in terms of countering others, and I always respected that because she was willing to go on shows that didn't like her or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Out of everybody, even though I didn't really like any of them for the most part, I'll put it for Jill Stein.
This is 2016?
This is the 2016.
Okay.
I'll tell you my voting record later, but like as far as on this date or whatever, I go to her, I'm like, yeah, I voted for a woman, but not her. So she goes, what are you talking about? You voted for Jill Stein? I go, yeah. She goes, what the hell's wrong with you? The day pretty much ended like at 30 minutes after, and I just went home, I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like, there's no sense of like, you know, choice anymore. Like, it's either one or the other.
Yeah, and now you're like now you're seeing the and look, it's always been happening, man. There's a and it comes with liberation, you know. I'm not saying like, you know, like the sexual liberation movement or anything. There's anything wrong with that. But you have to recognize sort of the culture that it has bred. And one thing that happened is that, okay, now people, you know, marriages used to be something that's very functional, right? Like, this guy has this, and he's able to provide this, and he's able to do this, and she's able to do this and provide this and whatever. These people will come together so that they can raise a family, and it's a very functional thing, a logical thing to produce a certain result, you know what I mean? Now, well, you know, it's like, what is love? Why do people get married and all that? It's like, oh, it's either somebody, it's like, I'm looking for somebody that's going to make me better, right? Or it's like, I'm looking for somebody who completes me. Or
But shouldn't you love yourself before loving anyone else, though?
But even that, right? Like, now you're seeing, like, what are the requirements are going from, like, something that's physical or something that's, like, you know, financial. Financial is even still a physical sense, right? Like money and assets and stuff. You're going from something physical to something a little more metaphysical, right? It's like, I like that person is, like, nerdy. You know what I mean? Or somebody, like, these are all abstract.
Right.
You know what I mean? The things that you're looking for in a partner is not functional. It's not logical. It's physical. It's not physical. It's you know, it's metaphysical. It's abstract. And as those requirements come about, now you're seeing, like, numbers rising. You know, Democrats are saying that they would never date a Republican, and Republicans saying that they would never date a Democrat. It's all about what's going on in your head, right? It's like, and then, you know, it'll translate to other places too. You know, now you have private companies that are getting boycotted because they might believe something or push something in a certain agenda in one of their marketing campaigns or something like that.
Right.
And they're, or even, you know, let's say a bunch of people disagree with what Tucker Carlson says, right? Or the things he believes and things he pushes out there. Well, now you have protesters and people trying to make sure that he doesn't eat, that he doesn't even get to, you know, have a living because of the things he believes because of this abstract thing, right? Everybody's going for the abstract now. It's a metaphysical war that we're dealing with. It's about ideology, battles of souls and stuff, man.
Well, think of it this way, in a kind of real-world scenario, like, you have people from Media Matters, like, calling up their advertisers, and they're like, oh, yeah, why would you ever support somebody like this? He said this, that, and the third, and that's kind of like the propaganda that's being used against them.
Exactly. And everything's propaganda now, man, right? When you've democratized news, you've democratized media, you've democratized creativity, right? Well, then now everybody gets to be their own propagandists.
Yeah.
And so, what do you believe anything, or do you just fight back with your own propaganda?
Exactly.
So, and I'm maybe some people might not like the way I answered it, or I make this statement, but it's like, I believe that everybody needs to operate as their own media organization. Everybody. Like, you yourself, Gerard Uccelli, you need to have, like, a media, or like, your own media organization, PR organization for yourself. Just to deal with this whole aspect.
Well, that's not completely irrational, because self-branding is something that's always been, like, presented to you throughout your life.
Right. But now branding is, like, a more, like, it's like a thing now. Right? Where, like, maybe it used to be, Uccelli International, right? That was like your company, right? But Uccelli International is run by Gerard Uccelli. And Gerard Uccelli has his own brand that he has to maintain. That might not be completely on par with Uccelli International. You see how it's all been atomized?
Yeah.
Right? It's all like, it's been hyper-individualized. Now it's not just about you being part of this organization. You have to maintain the brand's, or the organization's brand. Now it's, you have to maintain your brand within the organization's brand as well. And then, is it even worth it for you at that point?
Right.
Sometimes it's not, and that's why you just break off. You're like, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'd rather just maintain my own brand than trying to make my brand fit in with their brand.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that more, where people are starting to go independent and stuff, and just like, I'm gonna do my own thing. It's all like the same thing that happened in hip hop and in music and like underground rap and stuff is now happening in politics too. It's like very interesting, and the business world.
That's a whole other like dimension of conversation.
Yeah.
Like, as far as covering how music is comparable to like politics, especially in that genre, it's so interesting to me.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Now it's now it's cool to listen to underground politicians.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like oh, do you vote for Jeb or Hillary? It's like, I listen to Donald Trump. I like Donald Trump. Like, that's the one that nobody's.
Well, just think
that's what makes me cool. It's like hipster culture gone mad. You know what I mean?
Well, look how people are with like an Austin Peterson versus Gary Johnson. Mm-hmm. Yeah, both are, when you think about the numbers or whatever, and I'm going to put that in quotables, it's the lowest on the totem pole, but it's like, people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go for Austin Peterson because I've heard too much about Gary Johnson.
Right, exactly. So, like that you're sort of dealing with this sort of you're dealing with this sort of just this whole atomized landscape of competing brands, competing personalities, and cults of personalities. That's the future of politics, man, is cult of personality. As you atomize everything and everybody's just worried about building up their own personal brands, well, you might have a really awesome personal brand that everybody ascribes to, but then, like, it's just you and then your followers, and there's, like, nothing in between that. That's a cult. Mm. You know what I mean? It's not like you have this whole organization and all these people around you. Maybe you do in service of your brand, right? It's like there might be just people out there who are willing to work for Vish Burra Inc., right? But they have to know it's in service of your personal brand. It's not in service of this larger brand that's bigger than Vish Burra. No, Vish Burra is the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's all about like, it's like, oh, I'm not here to, I'm not speaking on behalf of Burra International. I'm speaking on behalf of Vish. And this is what Vish wants. Now, it's just one person in your mind when they're making that pitch to you, right? And so it's not like this whole mysterious organization with this crazy big... It's not Google, you know what I mean? It's like somebody coming up to you and being like, "No, this is what Sergey wants."
Sergey.
Right, Sergey Brin.
Yeah.
It's that puts a whole different idea in your mind than me saying, this is what Google wants, right?
Definitely.
So that's the territory that we're approaching. And if you just look at Donald again, the guy has like, well, I forgot how he had like double Hillary's like Twitter followers or something like that, So you're gonna tell me those aren't all votes for him? That's not a cult of personality driving him to victory,
Right.
So like it's the same thing. And AOC is the same thing, right? It's all atomizing around her. Is she a Democrat? Oh, she's AOC, right? So
that's interesting because I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
I never looked at it as AOC before the party itself. However, though, it's interesting because I'm somebody who likes to vote for the person over the party at all times. That's kind of like my background. Like, so for me, since I was 18, I voted for the person I felt like was the best qualified person. So, like, I voted for Ralph Nader 2008, Gary Johnson 2012. I'm always saying this because it's public. Like, it's out there for the public, so why not even say
I
it?
voted for Obama in 2012. Come on, give me a break, man. So, yeah, no, it's 100% true. I think, I enjoy taking shits on Max Rose. But there was one thing he did say that I think was very on point. I just don't think it went far enough. I think he's being nice. He said something like, Congress really sucks. It's like 435 independent contractors trying to like work together, right? And like he's like right about that. My only critique is like you're being too nice, Max. Like say what it really is.
Yeah.
And what it really is like 435 artists coming together. All of them want to be remembered for their thing, whatever their thing is, right? Like, what do artists want? At the end of the day, artists want to be remembered for something. Mona Lisa hanging in like a museum forever and ever.
They want a legacy to be followed.
A legacy to be followed, right? Every politician sort of wants that, in one way, form, or another. Your elected officials in Congress are essentially all these sort of. They're not independent contractors. They're artists. They all want to be remembered for something. Then you got to find a way to get a critical mass of them to work together, so that everybody could get a little piece of that thing. And is that something easy to do? Well, you tell me. How egotistical are artists?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They're very, right? Because they got to have their thing, their way. It's like if it's done that way, I don't want it. You know what I mean? That's how artists are. And so I think Max Rose doesn't really have that in him to like operate as that sort of artist, or in a way where you can get all these egotistical crazies to like tamper down their shit and work together.
To kind of go to this point as well, just as we said, we're going into 2020. There's a lot on the line for whatever states may be, but do you feel like there's anyone in the Democratic Party now who you feel like is an artist in that case who's running for president? Because I could tell you one who I think...
Beto.
I could tell you one who I think would be like the artist.
Okay, Beto steamed out, like...
Yeah.
But, and also Buttigieg stole his thunder. So,
oh, yeah.
So, but the artist if I were to consider somebody on their merits, and obviously the Democrats have the pool, so we'll talk about them. I would probably say Andrew Yang.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, Andrew Yang would be the artist, right? He's the one coming with fresh ideas. He's the one trying to do his campaign differently, creatively.
He's the only one appropriately targeting the job situations that we're in.
Right.
The fact that like 64% of our country is underemployed at some point.
Right, exactly. He's addressing all the right points, and not only that, he's offering like solutions that like you don't really hear from anybody else.
Yeah.
That's an artist thing. You know what I mean? That's like he's putting his intellectual power to come up with a solution that like it may not even directly fit in a certain spectrum. You know what I mean? So like that's that artist part of that. You know what I mean? And I think I'm a lot of I'll give a lot of props to him for coming out that way instead of trying to play a party line or anything like that. He's just coming out with fresh ideas, fresh tactics, fresh everything. That's an artist, man.
Like the fact that he's going to like truckers, the unions or whatever,
Yeah.
and he's seeing what like they're about, with the potentiality of their jobs being replaced.
He's trying to do rallies with holograms of himself.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's such a good idea. It really is. But the thing is that he can be the guy that does it. Now, the only way that he gets to leave is like he could lose. He's probably gonna lose, right? But he can make a lasting legacy with just the way he went about the whole thing.
Sure.
If he goes from like a first to a third, I mean from like a last to a third, right? Polling 1% to finishing third, people can be like, "Who's this guy Andrew Yang? He finished third. How?"
Look where Bernie was in
Right.
2016.
How? Right? And then they're going to go back and look. It's like, oh, this dude did hologram rallies? Okay, maybe we need to do that. Right? And now Andrew Yang has... That's it. The hologram rally thing, that's the Andrew Yang strategy.
Yeah.
Right? And now, boom. Remembered for as long as that tactic works. Right? You're a part of history now.
Definitely.
So that's and I give him kudos for that, for being a guy that's willing to try that out, right? He threw the ideas out there, or, and like, UBI is not necessarily a new idea, but the way he like sort of pitched it all together and framed it under automation and all that, and getting freedom
And
dividends.
using Alaska as an example.
Using Alaska as an example, and, but proper justification, right? If you're going to write a research paper, you go and make sure there's, like, examples of stuff where it happened to support your idea. He's got Alaska. He did it the right way.
Yeah.
Props.
I just don't like his universal base income thing. You're gonna, because AOC complained about like airport food and like why is it was it $17? Why is it
So, croissants,
17?
$7.
Why is it $7? You got to raise the minimum wage. And I'm saying to myself, you raising the minimum wage is not going to fix the issue. You're going to raise that croissant to now $12.
Yeah.
You're not changing the issue.
Right, 1,000,000%. I think there's, first of all,
Go ahead, say it.
I'm not gonna insult her, right? I'm just gonna say, I think she's hot. I don't give a lot of credence.
That's why people voted for her.
I don't give her a lot of credence to her ideas. She says a lot of stuff. I don't really listen, but she's got nice lipstick. Right? So,
I don't blame you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I think just to briefly touch on UBI. I think that there's actually maybe some room for Republicans to take up the issue. If I were to turn around, all right, and this is a huge problem with Republicans in general, and this is what I'm trying to avoid or trying to redo or retool with Republicans and conservatives in general. You talk to a Republican and it's like, hey man, what do you think about our public education system? They'll turn around and it's like, you gotta abolish the DOE, right? Just get rid of it, right? Like just make it go away, all or nothing, right? And that mentality makes it hard for government or politics to really move to where you want to go.
See, and think of it this way, too, because I have a lot of family in the education system.
Yeah.
So we already don't get a return on investment for the amount of money we spend, especially in New York City. Mm-hmm. So what would they say to you as far as like, oh, yeah, I want to do budget cuts to the DOE? You've got a comparable factor.
Right.
They're not going to get behind you.
Never. They won't get behind it, right? And it's that whole sort of all or nothing, just get rid of it kind of thing. It doesn't even sound constructive.
Right.
It doesn't. It
sounds impulsive.
It's not right. It doesn't. It sounds impulsive. It doesn't sound constructive, and you're basically making people pick sides, all or nothing. And you know what? Most people are not going to do that, and most people, to tell you the truth, don't really have the gall to do anything all the way. So, as a Republican, you hear it all the time. We need to cut spending. We need to cut the welfare programs. Right? They always talk about that, welfare programs. We need to make the welfare programs go away. Get rid of Social Security, get rid of this, get rid of that. Right? Well, instead of being so destructive and proposing ideas that sound impulsive, get rid of welfare. get rid of food stamps or all this stuff. How about this, right? Let us get rid of all the silly requirements as to why you need, why you get funded for food stamps, why you get housing subsidies, why you get these subsidies, why you get that. Instead, cut out all that administration. Simple requirement. Are you, do you make under, let's say, 35 grand a year? If you make under 35 grand a year individually as a person, you get $1,000 a month, no questions asked. But we don't do welfare, we don't do food stamps, we don't do any of this stuff.
You don't need to.
You don't
It's $12,000 a year.
It's 12.
That's the poverty we learn now.
Yeah, exactly. So here, now, what are you doing? You're essentially saying, I'm going to take all these benefits or whatever, I'm going to turn it into an actual cash payment, make the requirements absolutely tiny, right? Because what you have right now is what the government's saying, if you have one kid, you get this much amount of money, but if you have two kids, you get this much amount of money. Well, then, even if I'm poor and I can't afford them, I know I get more money if I have another kid, so I'm just going to have another kid.
That's a very good point you just touched on.
Yeah, it's the government's acting like a bad polygamist, you know what I mean? So instead, cut all that out, get rid of all the administration. Now you've actually shrunk the size of government. Right? You don't need all these administrators, these bureaucrats trying to figure out who deserves the money and who doesn't. Right? Simple. Do you make this much or not? Yes, you don't deserve the cut. No, you don't make this much. Here's $1,000 a month. Figure out your food in that. Figure out your housing in that. You have to make it work, but you can't say we didn't do anything. And boom, you shrunk the size of government. You've provided UBI, and now you've taken a directionalist step instead of an absolutist step.
Right.
Towards shrinking government, towards liberty. Right? And so that is something that Republicans should keep an open mind about. Don't try to kill the idea, right? Appropriate the idea. And figure out a way to make it work for your cause.
Yeah.
And Republicans don't do enough of that. Conservatives don't do enough of that, and I want to change that.
Much respect to that, though.
Thank you.
I think it's safe to say we can end it off on here. Vish, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Anytime, man. I'd love to be back.
Absolutely, you got it.
Thanks, dude. Thanks, Gerard.